What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to TWR. My name is Tavian, and this is my world of reptiles. I hope you are all doing awesome and taking care of yourselves. Please do me a favor before we get further into this video. Please hit the like. I appreciate that there are many of you who come through and watch my videos often, but do me a favor and actually hit the like on this one, and try to hit the like on my videos just to try to get that algorithm kicked. I'm definitely trying to get my game back on, so please help me out by kicking that algorithm in by hitting the like. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, now, a little bit ago, I think 2 videos ago, I did my Crested Gecko upgrade video. That video got little to no interactions on it at all. I mean, it got a few views. It's got some views and then, like, no comments. But either way, in that video, I was talking about how I was going to do multiple different upgrades for certain animals and move some things up. And one of those animals that I was saying, there were 2 of those animals, I guess, that I said I was going to upgrade were going to be my leopard geckos. If you guys remember, that I had them in the 20-gallon with the cardboard divider, and I was talking about moving them into this entertainment system that I had my 2 of the snakes in. I was just going to clean it out and set it all up. And I ended up actually doing that. Now, I didn't do the whole putting the camera up to watch me do the whole build, just because, just in my experience, that those videos just don't get a lot of traction. So I didn't bother to even do that much with that. So I finished up the build, and then I'm going to now show you what it looks like afterwards. And I really hope you like it, because I do like it. I do have more to say on it after the fact, but I am still excited to share it with you because I do like it, and I like the way it looks, chilling in my living room. So just check it out. Yeah, there it is. So I really do like it. I really do like it. I like it to hang out, chill out on my couch, watch my TV, and by the time I turn the lights off in the early evening, I then get to kind of see them come out and start to explore and get to see just how active these little animals are. And it's really fun to be able to experience their activity levels, because, you know, there's just a lot of, I'm starting to realize there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to the care of leopard geckos and the behaviors of leopard geckos. There's a lot of people who are just like, you know, leopard geckos, they don't climb that much, so you don't got to give them that much, whatever, because they don't climb. And that's just not correct. You know, I like to think there's a lot of people who are shifting away from that mindset now, but there's still a lot of people out there who are set on the fact that they just don't do a lot of climbing. And the reality is, these guys move around a lot. I got to witness these guys climbing all over these little things. I mean, at least one of them, the first one just kind of disappeared and got really shy. But I have gotten to witness it moving around a bit as well. And they definitely climb around on these things, and they take that height. I tried to get a little bit of height when I was setting this up, and they definitely utilize that height. Pretty much, they like climb up those spaces, which definitely makes a lot of sense, because I started to end up doing a lot of more deeper research, and I was trying to look for videos of leopard geckos in their more natural habitat, which is actually something you just don't find. Like, that's just not something that's easily findable. I did find the one. It's a bit of older one, but and it's in another language. I'm not exactly sure. I'm guessing it's obviously in the native areas of where these leopard geckos are found. But it was interesting to see the terrain, because it was definitely very rocky, lots of kind of cliff areas, and so it was interesting to see what that looks like, and then compare to how often you see the leopard geckos in captivity kept, and we're definitely not matching that, and we're not really reaching that. And I mean, not saying everybody, because there are definitely some out there who are putting that extra oomph in, but the vast majority of us, including myself, aren't really reaching that same level of naturalistic setting up for a leopard gecko. I mean, there's definitely all sorts of naturalistic substrates and stuff like the Terra Sahara that are made for like these desert-dwelling creatures, but that substrate is still not necessarily hitting on the natural environment that that leopard geckos are often found in, like you saw in that footage that I just showed. So it's just, I was really interesting to see that, and I definitely want to work on bettering this enclosure, but maybe not this one particularly, because I am still thinking about the fact that I'm not sure if this is going to be enough space for them as adults in the long time run. I definitely think they might want more space, but I'm going to watch them. I'm going to see how it goes, and if they look like, you know, when they maxed out in size and it still looks like a lot of space for them, then I will go into depth in making this more. Otherwise, I will just get a different set of enclosures, and I will set it up in the way that I feel like makes it look as much as naturalistic and to match kind of that terrain that we just saw as I possibly can, in a more rational way. Obviously, I can't just like put actual full stones like just piled up in, but I can recreate that in a way that I can that in the way that works best for me, and that's what I really want to work towards for my leopard geckos. Now, something else that I actually couldn't help but notice in that video that I came across was something that kind of counters what a lot of people feel is a thing also necessary for leopard geckos when it comes to captivity, and it's that strong belief that leopard geckos are not social creatures and they should keep them separated at all times unless you're breeding, right? But when you see these leopard geckos in this wild setting, there are multiple leopard geckos in one area. And so it started making me wonder like a little bit more about that and see if anybody has ever really gone deeper into that. And I started to look up some different videos, and I came across this one channel, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it is called, but I'm going to go ahead and put that card to that video right here so that you can get to that channel. And he was talking about exactly what I was looking for. He started to talk about his experience with hearing about leopard geckos not being communal creatures, and yet also doing his research and deciding to try keeping leopard geckos in a colony himself, and starting to record the different behaviors that he was witnessing from those animals. He also started to mentioned coming across a study where they were actually studying leopard geckos in the wild, and one of the things that he read in that was that leopard geckos were often found in colonies amongst these rocky, raw crevices areas, and they would sometimes even climb out of their way just to get to a very specific area that was their colony. And so, I mean, there was like colonies where there was babies, or specifically only youth, and then there was other colonies where there was the dominant male, and so forth and so on. He definitely goes more to depth about that in that video, so I'm definitely wanting you to check that out, because I'm not hitting it as well as he did. He was definitely covering this so well, and I was like, that is awesome. That's something I was really hoping to see. And then he did his own study with his own animals, and like he said, he was watching the behaviors, and we think about all the behaviors that we see from these animals, and the ones that we don't see them get to express often because they're not actually being kept in this colony-like setting, so we don't get to see all those full behaviors. But when you do keep them in a colony-like setting, then you get to see where those behaviors kick in, where those like defensive or dominating, or just the noises that they make, the ways that they are able to communicate with one another, and how that communication is obviously very key for them even in the wild, because they do live in colonies. And so to be able to use those body languages and those noises and those ways of communication with each other is why they even developed those ways of communication. It's how they're able to coexist with each other out in the nature. And so for us to be on this kind of just straightforward fact of just like leopard geckos should be kept away from each other, and that's just what it is, when we can get some footages like this where they're showing you that that's not actually true, that leopard geckos actually do come together, and they do have little colonies, and they do make it work like that. And so I think sometimes this hobby just gets a little set in its ways, and we get this thing that we take a long time to adjust. You know, we'll keep the same way of practicing for years on years on years and not really want to budge from that. But the reality is we don't know everything about these different species, and we're constantly learning about them. And so in order to be able to continue to care for them properly, we need to keep up to date on what we know about them, and we need to get more in the field studying done about some of these animals that we don't know a lot about before we continue to push these hardcore just like requirements of keeping these animals solitary, because maybe these colonial like settings add more enrichment to their lives than just being solitary. Maybe they do get more from interacting with each other. If they were actually solitary creatures, you would often find them absolutely far away from each other, not kind of crammed into each other, or deliberately crawling out of their way to get to the very specific colony or area with their little group of leopard geckos that they feel comfortable in. Like, that kind of behavior just kind of shows that we don't know everything about leopard geckos, and so maybe this whole like only keeping them separated thing is maybe not necessarily 100% true. And I would like to see more footage of animals like this in their natural habitat so that we can actually study what they are doing, how they're interacting with each other, how they're using their body language or their communications, their ability to communicate with each other. How are they doing that? Is it that they're necessarily always fighting, or is it that they're actually just communicating in the ways that they best communicate in the wild, and we as humans just don't understand it, and so we just accumulate that to just being aggressive behavior or unsafe to do in captive keeping? But reality is, in the wild, they maybe they rely on that interaction. Maybe that helps a part of their enrichment. Maybe that's a really crucial part of their lives, that social gathering. And so anyway, I'm starting to ramble, but I went on a whole dive of that whole research. And so right after I had finished up the leopard gecko enclosure, I did that dive before, and then after I finished it up, I was just like, I like it, I made it work with what I got, but I definitely can do better, and we can definitely learn more. Does that mean I'm going to go ahead and throw my leopard geckos together? Probably not. I don't know much about it, and I imagine that if I chose to go that route, I would need to get at least a 2 to 3 times larger enclosure to make sure they absolutely did have the space they needed to give away from each other if they wanted to, and maybe even think about what ratio of genders I would want within that enclosure. Maybe I would want just the one male and a couple of females, or something like that. So I would need to consider so many things before just deciding that, I'm going to just stick them together. I'm not saying that there's a lot of people out there who would be like, that's exactly what I did and I had no problems, and that's cool too. If that's your experience, that's wonderful, because like I said, we don't know all that we need to know about these animals, and then maybe there's no set anything yet. There's no set anything on how things need to be done when it comes to captive and keeping with so many of these reptiles. So anyway, rambling, I'm gonna wrap it up. So you all take care, you love yourselves, love your loved ones, love your reptiles, and you all keep spreading those herbs.